Have you ever wondered how a nation is born? Not just on a map, but in the hearts and minds of its people? Today, we're journeying back in time to tell the incredible story of Ghana, the first sub-Saharan African country to break free from colonial rule. It's a tale of resilience, brilliant strategy, and the unwavering spirit of a people determined to shape their own destiny. Our story begins in the late 19th century, when the British Empire solidified its control over the region they called the Gold Coast. For decades, life was dictated by colonial administrators. But beneath the surface, a current of resistance was growing. The desire for self-governance wasn't a sudden spark, it was a slow-burning fire, passed down through generations. The early 20th century saw the rise of nationalist movements, like the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, which laid the groundwork for what was to come. These early groups challenged colonial land policies and advocated for greater African representation, planting the seeds of political consciousness. The real turning point, however, came after World War II. Thousands of soldiers from the Gold Coast had fought for the British Empire, believing they were fighting for freedom and democracy. When they returned home, they found that those same ideals were denied to them in their own land. The post-war economic struggles, combined with the hypocrisy they witnessed, created a perfect storm for change. The promise of a better life after the war had turned into a reality of high unemployment, inflation, and continued colonial subjugation. The veterans were organized, politically aware, and deeply disillusioned. They became a powerful force demanding the rights they had fought for. It was in this charged atmosphere that the United Gold Coast Convention, or UGCC, was formed in 1947. Led by educated elites and successful merchants like J.B. Dankwa, the UGCC's slogan was self-government within the shortest possible time. They were thinkers, lawyers, and businessmen, and their approach was measured and constitutional. They knew they needed a dynamic, full-time organizer to mobilize the masses. On the recommendation of a colleague, they invited a man who was then in London, a passionate Pan-Africanist named Kwame Nkrumah. Nkrumah returned to the Gold Coast in late 1947 and took up his role as General Secretary of the UGCC. He was a force of nature. Where the UGCC leaders were cautious, Nkrumah was radical. He traveled tirelessly across the country, lighting a fire in villages and towns with his powerful speeches. He connected with market women, farmers, and young people, translating the complex idea of independence into a simple, urgent call for freedom, self-government now. His charisma and energy were exactly what the movement needed to go from an elite discussion to a mass phenomenon. Then, on February 28, 1948, everything changed. Unarmed veterans, marching to the governor's residence at Christiansborg Castle in Accra to present a petition about their poor living conditions, were fired upon by colonial police. 3 of the march's leaders were killed. The news spread like wildfire, and the city of Accra erupted. The Accra riots lasted for days, with people looting European-owned stores and targeting colonial symbols. The colonial government, completely taken by surprise, declared a state of emergency and blamed the UGCC leadership for the unrest. Nkrumah, J.B. Dankwa, and 4 other leaders, who would become known as the Big Six, were arrested and exiled to the Northern Territories. This was a massive miscalculation by the British. The arrests didn't crush the movement, they made the Big Six national heroes. For the people, their imprisonment was proof that the colonial government was the true oppressor. During their time in detention, a crucial ideological split began to emerge. The other UGCC leaders were unnerved by the riots and Nkrumah's radical approach. Nkrumah, on the other hand, saw the riots as proof that the people were ready for immediate and decisive action, not slow, constitutional reform. Upon their release, the tensions were undeniable. Nkrumah felt the UGCC leadership was too conservative and out of touch with the urgency of the masses. So, in June 1949, he made a bold move. He broke away and formed his own political party, the Convention People's Party, the CPP. The CPP's motto was simple, direct, and electrifying: self-government now. Their base was the common person, the youth, the workers, the farmers, everyone who had been left out of the political process. The CPP became a true mass movement, organized down to the village level. The British tried to quell the rising tide by proposing a new constitution that offered limited self-rule. For Nkrumah and the CPP, it was too little, too late. In January 1950, he launched a campaign of positive action. This was a strategy inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, involving nationwide strikes, boycotts, and nonviolent civil disobedience. The goal was to bring the colonial economy and administration to a standstill, to make the country ungovernable. The response from the people was overwhelming. The country was paralyzed. The colonial government reacted swiftly, arresting Nkrumah and other CPP leaders once again and sentencing them to prison for sedition. But you can't imprison an idea. From his prison cell in James Fort, Nkrumah became an even more powerful symbol of resistance. He was a political martyr, and the CPP, led by figures like K.A. Kabedema, continued to organize in his absence. Then came the ultimate test. The British, in another attempt to manage this situation, called for the Gold Coast as first general election with universal suffrage in 1951. They were confident that with Nkrumah in jail, the CPP would crumble. They couldn't have been more wrong. The CPP launched an ingenious campaign. They put Nkrumah's name on the ballot for the Accra Central constituency. His image was everywhere. His message was spread through rallies, songs, and newspapers. The election became a referendum on Nkrumah himself. On election day, the people delivered a stunning verdict. The Convention People's Party won a landslide victory, taking 34 out of 38 seats. And Kwame Nkrumah, prisoner number 99, won his seat with over 95% of the vote. The British governor, Sir Charles Arden Clarke, was faced with an unprecedented situation. He had a choice: either ignore the democratic will of the people and risk a full-blown revolution, or release his political prisoner and invite him to form a government. He chose the latter. In a moment of incredible historical drama, Kwame Nkrumah was released from prison and driven straight to the governor's castle, the very place the veterans had been marching towards just 3 years earlier. He walked out of prison a convicted criminal and walked into the castle as the leader of government business, effectively the country's first prime minister. The years from 1951 to 1957 were a period of transition. Nkrumah and the CPP had to prove they could govern. They worked with the British administration, learning the ropes of government while systematically pushing for more and more autonomy. They built roads, schools, and hospitals, showing the people the tangible benefits of self-rule. Nkrumah skillfully navigated the political landscape, consolidating power and preparing the nation for the final step. He had to win another crucial election in 1956, which he did, confirming that the people's desire for full independence was unwavering. Finally, the day arrived. The British Parliament passed the Ghana Independence Act. As the clock ticked past midnight on March 6, 1957, the British Union Jack was lowered for the last time, and the new flag of Ghana, red, gold, and green with a black star in the center, was raised. On the polo grounds in Accra, in front of a massive, ecstatic crowd, Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah, tears streaming down his face, declared, "At long last, the battle is ended. And thus, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever." That black star on the flag wasn't just for Ghana. Nkrumah declared that Ghana's independence would be meaningless unless it was linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. Ghana became a beacon of hope and inspiration for independence movements all across Africa. The story of Ghana's independence is a powerful reminder that change comes from the courage to demand it and the unity to achieve it. It's a story of how a visionary leader and a determined people could peacefully, but forcefully, reclaim their destiny and light a fire that would change a continent. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through Ghana's incredible history. If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the people and events that have shaped our world. See you next time.